Hey y'all, story time. Let me tell y'all about the time I thought my husband and our friends got kidnapped by the Mexican cartel while we were on vacation in Mexico. If you're new to my page, I'm a travel agency owner, and I had a friend who was having a big birthday and wanted me to plan a trip for her. So we decided on Puerto Vallarta and we rented a villa. So it was about 15 or 16 of us, and we had this 10-bedroom villa, gorgeous, gorgeous villa. And so another friend of mine, I had planned a trip for her a couple months before. She ended up not being able to go, so she got a credit from one of my suppliers. So she called me probably about 2 weeks before this trip, and she was like, hey, my birthday coming up, I wanted to go on a trip. And I was like, oh, well, during that time, we're going to be on this trip, it's for my friend's birthday, whatever. We got an extra room. And she was like, okay, can I use my voucher? And so the supplier I used, they do flights and hotels as a package. So I was like, well, let me check. I said, but you have to do, they don't just do flights. So she only needed a flight because we already had the villa. So I was like, okay, you know what? You could do a flight and a hotel, or you could do a flight and a rental car. I said, so you know what? We'll just rent a car, drive to the villa, whatever. So she ended up booking. And so time come for us to go on a trip. So we arrived in Mexico maybe about 4:00. So our ground transportation is there to pick us up, got us, drinks and everything, to just get our vacation started. So there's a different area you go to for the rental car. So I told my husband, I was like, hey, why don't you ride with them, and I'll go with the group to the villa. We'll see y'all at the villa. And because it's a different area, they couldn't follow behind the van, but I was like, here's the address, But let me tell you, Mexican addresses are different from the addresses in the States. Like the number is at the end, of course it's in Spanish, whatever. But anyway, I sent him the address. So we on the way, we got the music playing, drinks flowing, whatever. It took us maybe 15, 20 minutes from the airport to the villa. So, we arrive, the house manager greets us. They have guacamole and margaritas for us, welcoming us to the villa. He takes us all around, show us all the different rooms, take us, it's like a game room because it's like a 2-story villa. Take us to the game room, and it's like, okay, we have some snacks for y'all. Y'all just, put your stuff, we'll take your stuff to your, your back to your room, whatever. So we like, okay, we turn, we lit. Like, okay, vacation done started, we in this beautiful, home, we ready, So everybody, kind of gather out by the pool, out by the pool. So I was like, dang, everybody put on their bathing suit. I'm like, dang, where my husband? He got my bags, because he took the bags with him. So, not tripping. I'm just sitting by the pool drinking, whatever, we talking, whatever. Just think about how much fun we gonna have. So, as we just talking and, really, just having a good time, whatever, like an hour or so go by. So my first thought is like, okay, maybe they stopped like at the liquor store, store, whatever. So not thinking much of it, we still talking and chatting and drinking and, having our little snacks or whatever. So then like an hour and a half, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. They should be here by now. Or he would at least call me, like if they're going to really detour. So okay, whatever. So now about 2 hours, I'm like, okay, let me duck off to one of these rooms and, call him, see what's going on. Because, his phone going to voicemail, whatever. So we have locations on. So I'm looking at the location and they're not too far. Like I see a road, and on each side of the road it's like trees. So it's not like it's a plaza or a place where they would actually stop and be. So I'm like, that's weird. Like, okay. So now I'm looking and it's like, okay, 30 minutes. This location is in the same location. I'm calling him. I'm calling the wife. I'm calling her husband. Everybody's phone is going to voicemail. And I see their location is like in the middle of the road. And it's just trees on both sides, whatever. So I was like, okay. So now, I'm calling like, okay. So I had an idea. I was like, okay. Let me call his best friend, maybe he, called him or something. Let me call his mom, like, hey, have y'all talked to him, whatever. They like, no, not thinking, nothing. They was like, oh, he'll be there in a minute. He good. So I was like, okay, but it's been a long time. So now I'm like, okay, let me call the rental car company. So call the rental car company and I'm like, hey, I'm a travel agent and I have clients who, we arrived in Mexico today. It's been like 2 hours. They haven't arrived. I'm just worried. Can you ping the car or whatever? They were like, no, you're not the person who rented the car. It's not in your name. We can't give you any information. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So go back to trying to call them, still getting voicemail, everything. So I'm like, nah, hold up. Let me call these people back. So I called them back like, look, this is an emergency. Like, I have 3 Americans in Mexico that we can't find. It's been 2 hours. We're only like 20 minutes away from the airport. They're in a rental car. I need somebody to tell me something. So this time they were like, okay, we can, we'll check and see, where the car, is right now. So he was like, we can't see where it is, but we can tell you that at one point they were at this restaurant, like the car pinged at this restaurant. So my first thought is like, okay, my husband really ain't stopping at no random restaurant in Mexico when we first get there. But at this point, I'm grasping for straws. Like, okay, I'll check. So call the restaurant and I'm like, hey, talk to this nice manager. I was like, hey, I have 3 Americans, that they're supposed to arrive, at our villa. It's been 2 hours and the rental car company is telling me that, that the car pinged there. Can you just check the restaurant and see if you see them? It's 2 black guys and a white, it's 2 black guys and a black female. So they were like, so he was like, okay, let me check. So he go check, he come back to the phone. He's like, no, we don't have anyone that fits that description here, whatever. So I'm like, oh my God. So at this point, I've been gone for a long time from the group. So my friend comes and she's like, friend, what's going on? What you doing? And I'm like, they ain't got here yet. Like, it's been 2 hours. I tell her the whole story. And she like, dang, she was like, but he good. I mean, I'm sure he good, but okay, let's think. So I'm like, okay, we thinking like, what else can we do? Whatever. So at this point, it's probably like 6 o'clock, 6:30. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to call the U.S. Embassy because something is wrong. Like, I know something is wrong. I'm going to call the U.S. Embassy. Call the U.S. Embassy. Of course, they're closed. So they couldn't get help from there, but at this point, I was willing to call any and everybody. So now, it's been longer. So, his cousin comes down, they're like, what y'all doing? Whatever. And they're like, dang, they ain't here yet. I'm like, no, they ain't here yet. And, they're phones going to voicemail, like, I don't know what's going on. So now we're all like worried. And when I tell y'all now, the whole energy of the house has changed. Like, we were party, like, yeah, we in Mexico, da, da, da. Now everybody's just somber, like, what in the world is going on? Because now we're working on 2.5, 3 hours. And I'm like, yeah, this is bad. And I mean, everything's going through my head. So first I'm like, okay, they done got kidnapped by the Mexican cartel. Like, I just know that that's what happened. They saw these, Americans in a rental car, whatever. Now they kidnapped them and robbed them. That's all I could think. Like, there's no other explanation. Like, a drive that takes you 20 minutes and it's now taking you 3 hours and no contact. Location is in the same spot because I thought they threw the phones out the window at this point, whatever. And they got them held hostage. Like, do they want ransom? Like, everything is going through my head. Like, this is crazy. So now I'm crying. My friend's crying. My husband's cousin is crying. All the ladies just crying. All the guys trying to, be supportive and like, no, y'all know he good. He good, whatever. And I'm like, we're in Mexico. Like, we're out the country. Something is really, really wrong. So I'm going to have to come back for part 2 and let y'all know exactly what happened. But it is crazy.